morning, thanks for joining us. This video is in response to a lot of questions we had about how we get logs to our property. And so I wanted to talk about not just hauling logs, but everything that we haul. We've spent 5 years now, basically every time I hop on the snow machine, I've got something in behind that we're hauling. It's very rare that I get to go for a pleasure cruise without anything attached. So yeah, learned a few things about hauling gear and wanted to share some of the things we've found out. So for the vast majority of our hauling needs, anything that will fit inside these tubs, then they're always our preference. These are just simple Pelican tubs. We got them at Costco. They were under 200 bucks, came with a cover, and they've proven to be very durable. So they've been kind of the workhorse of our fleet. The reason we like these small tubs so much is with the hinge. It makes them very versatile and maneuverable in tight areas. It's probably 20 feet here of length in the trailers, but they corner like a 5 or 8 foot trailer. So whenever we're hauling a load that will fit in the tubs, then we'll definitely take the tubs in preference to anything else. Major thing that we've done to them to make them more versatile is to add a hitch on the back. So I'll show you that. So it's very simple hitch. It's just this one little flapper of steel. So we just bolted onto the back with through bolts. I've always been worried about tearing out this plastic lip, so you can see a couple more bolts here and here, and I just slip a strip of steel in behind and then bolt all that down. And that's allowed us, we've been using these for years now, we've never had one tear out, and hauled some pretty heavy loads. Of course, this first tub is carrying the weight of however many tubs we have in behind. Typically we'll do 3 tubs as a maximum. It's about a face cord of wood when all 3 tubs are full, and yeah, no problems. They used to be available at our local dealer for 20 bucks, and then this year they went up to $60. So that just became too much to spend for such a simple part. So I decided to make some of my own based on the same design. So I just bought a pack of strap hinges. It cost me 20 bucks for I think a pack of 3. So just taking a regular strap hinge, I've done very little to modify it. It was a longer hinge, so I just cut off the end, rounded the corners there. And then the steel here was just rolled. And so I was worried with the force on it, it would start to unroll over time. So I just put a little weld there to hold it together. And that is it. Oh, and the pin was just a removable pin, so we just drilled a hole, a little bit of wire there so that the hinge pin wouldn't fall out. So these have done pretty well, and they were about $7 each, and very little time investment. So back here I've got one that's been installed and used for a season. It's not holding up quite as well as the official Arctic Cat ones, but it's doing pretty well. And basically I think, the general idea of just taking an appropriately sized hinge and adding that on there would work just fine. I was just a bit too cheap in the ones I picked. I kind of underestimated the force, and so it lasted a year. It's folding a little bit, bending a little bit, and I just don't think it'll last as long. And then the last thing I want to talk about for these guys is the runners. So that's the only other maintenance we've had to do. They come installed with 4 HDP runners. They get torn out from time to time. You can see one has been torn out here, but they are very easy to replace, and if you keep on top of that, then it's going to keep the body itself in great shape and keep it lasting for a long time. So on this tub, those color-coded white and red runners have been replaced with some thicker HDPE that I cut myself. And when I bought my sheet of 3/4 inch HDPE, I just cut up the whole sheet into strips. So now I've got enough to do at least a couple more sleds, and that'll mean easy maintenance over the next couple of years. Now for anything the 3 tubs can't handle, we've got the Komatik. This thing is a beast. It will haul anything we can throw at it. We've had logs on it, 12 and 14 foot logs. I use a handy app that will estimate the weight of logs, and that tells me that some of the big white pines we've put on here have been in excess of 1,300 pounds. So it's had a massive loads on it. We brought in a big joiner planer that was listed as 900 pounds. Our wood stove, I'm sure, was over 1,000 pounds. So yeah, just some huge loads on it. Found the plans for this, published as a really neat, just a one-page poster published by the Nunavut Bilingual Education Society. And I'll put a link to those plans, but basically followed them to a T with very few modifications, and it's just been, yeah, a major boon to us for hauling anything that won't fit in the tubs. Now it's a rougher ride. You gotta take the corners a bit wider, and whenever you're coming up over a little bump, it'll ride like halfway up and then bang, it slams down. So yeah, it's obviously it's a bigger craft, it's heavier, but when we need it, then you know, it's there for everything we can throw at it. So there are essentially no fasteners holding this thing together. It's all just tied, which is the traditional method to have these guys lashed, and that's described in those plans that I mentioned. And that makes this thing very flexible. So there's just some holes drilled down there that this all gets tied to. I'll put up a little clip of this thing smucking a tree with a couple of nice maple logs on it. It shifted the whole thing back. One ski was about 6 inches farther ahead than the other. But we took the load off, it just straightened right out. I have folded, had a heavy load on here one time, took a corner a little too fast, was getting a bit aggressive, and one of these skis just folded completely in under the whole Komatik. Again, took the load off, stood it back up, popped the ski out, and haven't done a thing to it since. Didn't change the lash lines or anything. It's just been going fine for years since. 2x10 runners. To form the nice graceful front curl, you just cut out the bottom corner of that 2x10, stick it right up on top, and yeah, gives it that nice front end. And joined to the hitch, I noticed the first year that it was really wallowing out the hole in the wood, so just put a steel plate on there to protect that, and it seems to have done pretty well. I've laminated the 2x10 with a sheet of plywood just to give it some additional strength. The runners of this guy are shoed in 1/4 inch HDPE, and they've held up pretty well for a couple of years. This year was a tougher year, lots and lots of slush, and so we took this thing on through a lot of churned up frozen slush, which can be really rough, and so I think just a few times where it bridged some spots of slush there, we broke them a little bit, but I think I'll reshoe this in the 3/4 inch HDP, which is going to be a lot more long lasting. And then of course on the back, the exact same hitch receiver that we've got on all of our plastic tubs. Of course, it doesn't need any reinforcement with the wooden connection here, so it's just lagged on, so that's even easier to install. So there she is. And oh, the probably the most important feature of this, which is explained in those instructions, hopefully you can, it doesn't actually look like much right now. There you go. You can see from this angle that the skis are splayed out. So I think we cut it at about 7 degrees. So we beveled the top and bottom edges of that 2x10. That splays it out about 7 degrees, and that gives it a lot of stability. So that resists that lag folding under. Although, like I mentioned, I have had that happen once. But with a purely vertical lag, I think you would have a lot more trouble with this. I'm not going to spend much time on this guy because we rarely use it. We call this the dog sled. Can haul gear, can haul people. Came with our first machine that we bought. Yeah, I mean, it works, but you gotta lash everything in there. It doesn't have a lot of capacity. In terms of modifications, I've shoed it with HDP, same 1/4 inch stuff. We've got lots of it for our toboggan building business, and so that has probably helped with the friction a little bit. It's got a little flap on back too. I guess that's where we got the idea of adding it to all the others, because it came with it. The sides and the back fold down, and so that gives us a little flat deck. So moving things like a generator that maybe doesn't fit in the tubs and doesn't necessarily warrant taking the big Komatik, then we might lash it on here. But beyond that, really doesn't see any use, because it's basically been replaced by the tubs, which just seem to slide better, easier to pack, and are lighter. And lastly, I'll just show a little video of sliding self-contained things like a shed. And so that was just for a single move, so it wasn't set up for permanent hauling. And we just slipped, again, same 1/4" HDPE, slipped that under the beams of the shed, tied it to the snow machine, and away we went. To note, in many places, like here in Ontario, you have to have a rigid hitch. So not strictly legal, but we were only on our private property, so probably okay.
Oh man, here she goes! Freedom! Oh! Yeah. Woo! Freedom!
So there you have it, the various ways we haul things around the property here in the winter, and why and how, and hopefully that's been helpful to you. Again, if you're looking for plans to build a Komatik like this, then I'll post a link down in the description. I can also link to the Costco tubs if that's allowed. I'm not sure really all the rules. I think that's it. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you've enjoyed it, maybe learned something. And if you liked it, please hit the like, please consider subscribing, and stay tuned next time. Thank you.